Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Morty and Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be doing a tournament after action report. That's right, it's time for some more dispatches from the front lines. And oh boy, do I have a tasty meatball for your viewing pleasure today. Because not only is this an old world after action report, old world, best game GW makes right now, but it was also an Empire after action report. Love me Empire, best faction in the game. But it was also a new kind of Empire army, one that I have not run before. You see, I am sick and tired of my poor bloody infantry being outfought by everyone. So I decided that I was going to bring quality over quantity. I know. So I went for an elite infantry army. Every state troop upgrade to veteran. Big old brick of greatswords to anchor the center. And enough guns to back them up. This is the elite infantry corps. A bold strategy, I know. A bold strategy indeed. There's only one way to find out if it paid off. Let's heft our Zweihanders and charge right into this thing. Attention guardsmen, the Morty and Glory channel is now officially sponsored by Wargames Atlantic. Wargames Atlantic sells fantastic multi-part plastic kits which are perfect for expanding and augmenting your guard army. Not only do you get a very generous amount of models for a very impressive price point, but also they have a bulk buy discount. The more you buy, the bigger you save. And what's even cooler is they've got loads of different designs to choose from. You've got your Bulldogs, which could count as Praetorians. You've got your Le Grognards, which could count as Mordians, Kriegers, or Vestorians. But if you're looking for something a little bit more modern sci-fi, maybe you're a big Aliens fan, then check out their Ura models, which could count as Cadians or Colonial Marines. So if you like what you see, then please click the affiliate link down in the description below. It's a great way of getting yourself some new models and supporting the channel at the same time. A huge thank you to Wargames Atlantic for sponsoring the channel, and now let's get back to the video. As is tradition, I want to start off today's video with a few thank yous. I want to say a big thank you to the tournament organisers and venue for today's event, Just Play Games in Liverpool. Just Play is my friendly local gaming store, and I've been going there for years at this point. I've been playing in their 40k tournaments forever, and I've been playing in their old world events for a couple of years now, and they've just got them nailed down. They've gone from strength to strength with them, and I just really enjoy going to every single one of them. The staff are really nice and also very experienced, and the events just run seamlessly. So if you're looking for just a quintessential RTT experience, then I can really recommend Just Play in Liverpool, and I really think you should check them out. I also want to say a big thank you to all of my opponents. The crew that we've got down at Just Play, the local old world community, is just fantastic. A real mixture, just what you want from a wargaming community. Everyone gets it, especially on the old world front, and you've got that great mix of people that are turning up for the first time and just having fun, just there like, oh look, I'm playing a bit of Warhammer Fantasy, this is kind of cool. And then you've got a few people that have it as like their secondary game and they're happy to just be playing and they're a bit experienced and they're just chill. And then you've just got at the top, you know, 1 or 2, 3 players who are in it to win it. And it's great to see people who can really build some powerful lists and really play the game very well. And you just got all these different layers of player, and it just makes for a great gaming experience. You get to have chill games, you get to have hard games, and overall you get to have good games. But with all of that said, now let's get into the video proper, and we'll begin with the army list overview. As per usual, I have done a separate army list video which really gets into the nitty-gritty and is a proper deep dive, and I'll make sure there's a link to that video down in the description below. But for those of you that just want a quick summary for now, here is what I was running. I was playing with a grand army of the Empire. I wasn't running any armies of Infantry, no Norn today. And at the top of that, I had my General. And I was running the special character, General von Löwenhacke. Really like this guy. Not only has he got a solid melee weapon and a decent defensive profile, but most importantly, he lets you add +1 or -1 to the dice roll to see who's going to go first at the beginning of the game. Typically, I already get all of my units down first anyway. As you'll see, I think I've only got about 6 or 7 drops in this list in total, which means that I'm already getting the +1 naturally. Then I get another +1 from General von Löwenhacke, giving me +2, and it tends to mean that I get the first turn. I can kind of play into getting the first turn, which is really good for me because I've got lots of cannons. So I want that first turn to be able to deliver an initial punch to the enemy. In addition to my general, I had a captain of the Empire who was upgraded to be my battle standard bearer. I didn't give him any magical banner. I was just there for the extra +1 combat resolution and also the leadership rerolls on break tests and stuff like that. And for his loadout, for his war gear, I gave him full plate armor, and he also had the Talisman of Protection and the biting blade. Rounding out the characters, I had 2 Empire Engineers with no upgrades, just there to help out the guns. Moving on to the core selection, I went for a controversial choice. I went for 2 bricks of veteran state troops. These guys are a little bit more expensive, but you do get an extra weapon skill and you get the veteran special rule as well, giving you some rerolls on your leadership test. But to be clear, that does not affect break tests. Veteran state troops are not something you see very often because at the end of the day, a state troop is a state troop and he's probably going to die anyway. But I will say this, I did notice the weapon skill 4 and I did actually find it to be quite useful. So I may have changed my tune a little bit on veteran Empire state troops in the wake of this tournament report. But I will say this, I had 2 bricks of 30 of these guys of full command and that took up my entire core requirement, and I probably could have got a couple of extra units in here or some detachments if I had gone down the regular veteran state troop route. And if I'd gone Norn, for example, I could have taken Norn state troops and had those good Norn handgunner detachments as well. So the jury is still out on veteran state troops, but I didn't find them to be a bad option at all. But speaking of elite infantry and really leaning into the vibe of the army, I had a big old brick of greatswords, 28 of them with full command. The reason I went for 28 is because my general and my BSB were going to join this unit, giving me a big old brick of 30 of these guys. So I had 3 bricks of 30 veteran infantry, which is pretty tasty. Greatswords are just one of my favorite units, purely from a vibes point of view. A lot of people say they're not particularly good, but I have to say, it felt good as an Empire player being able to go toe-to-toe in melee with the best of them. Finally, we have got the guns. So my greatswords are in the special selection, and then I also had 3 great cannons. That's more than usual. Normally I just take 2, but I thought, you know what? Let's get extra great cannon in there. I love me cannons, and you can never go wrong with having a bit more firepower in an Empire list. And then I also had 4 guns in my rare selection. I had a Hellblaster volley gun. Love the old Hellblaster. And then I had the ever useful steam tank as well, the cast iron bitch. So lots of infantry, lots of guns, and a pinch of armor. But that's enough about the army list. Now let's head on over to the lay of the land. So for the format of the event, it was a RTT, a 1-day, 3-round tournament. We were using all of the missions from the matched play guide as well, and we were using the match play guide scoring system as well. This meant, for example, that in order for you to get the win, you would need to beat your opponent by up to 300 points rather than the usual 100 in the main rulebook. We were not using any secret missions in this event because, well, secret missions are just a bit of a nightmare. As for the terrain at the event, it was laid out on the tables and it was a case of leave it where it is for the day. Only time that you needed to move the terrain was if something had been obviously nudged, like someone had nudged a hill because they were putting their army tray on the table to re-rack and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, the terrain was where it was, and it was laid out at the beginning of the day by the tournament organizers. As for the players at the event, I would say this was a slightly spicier than usual event for Just Play. There were about half of the players there that were really in it to win it. Usually you get about a dozen or a couple of dozen players, and it's the top sort of 3 or 4 players where they are going for it. They're really going for the win. But I noticed this time that I would say at least half of the players there had gone for more cutthroat, more optimized lists rather than for more vibes-based lists. And there was a very clear distinction. 50% of people were pure vibes, 50% of people were in it to win it. And it did make for, I would say, a more competitive event. I would normally describe Just Play as a semi-competitive environment, but this time I would definitely say it was a full-blown competitive tournament. But you know what? That is enough pre-game preamble, if you will. I know why you're all really here. So let's get into the games. So round 1, I played against Isaac, who's a good mate of mine, and he was running his dwarves. His army list was in a Royal Clan army of infamy, and starting off the characters, he had a really tanky king with shield bearers and loads of runes of shielding. He had the gunslinger Thane, who was also his BSB, and then he had an Anvil of Doom, and that rounded out his character selection. As for his core, he had 20 Royal Clan warriors who had been upgraded to be drilled, and they were stubborn as well. And they had hand weapons and shield. Their whole thing was just being very tanky, and the king went with them. And then he had 20 Longbeards who also had hand weapon and shields and heavy armor, and they were also drilled. Everything was drilled. And then he had 19 Hammerers who the BSB went with, and they were also drilled. They were drilled, and everything had full command, all of that good stuff. Rounding out the list, there was a Grudge Thrower, a Bolt Thrower with the Rune of Skewering, and 5 Iron Drakes, who were also drilled. The mission for round 1 was encirclement, meaning there were 4 objectives, and just a little bit of your deployment zone on one side was restricted. For deployment, I ended up going with my flank being anchored by a cannon and also a steam tank. The idea being here that I've got 2 cannons that could actually cover the hill. And I figured that he was going to put his war machines on that hill. And so I reckon that my cannons can outdo a Grudge Thrower and a Bolt Thrower there. I then went for a pretty standard deployment of my infantry. I had a platoon. 40k coming in there. I had a brick of state troops on the left, Greatswords in the middle with my characters, and a brick of state troops on the right. This meant that my BSB and general leadership could support every infantry unit in the army. And I love putting the flank stank down because it just meant that I had this flank basically in the bank from the get-go. Over on this side, I had Boomtown, 2 cannons and a Hellblaster volley gun, and I had an engineer around here as well. And the idea was that I was just going to be able to sling loads of firepower into these dwarves, thinning them out as they came down this flank, and then my state troops would basically march in to intercept them so that they wouldn't just be able to get to my cannons. As for Isaac, he had his dwarf warriors with the king on my right flank. He had his hammers in the center. He had his long bears that were sort of in the center but towards the left. They did eventually end up coming around this flank. And then he had his Iron Drake supporting his hammerers, Anvil of Doom at the back, and then his artillery on the hill. Now, I think Isaac actually did manage to get his units down before mine, but then I had General Löwenhacke, so we both essentially had +1 to the roll, and that meant that it was just a straight roll-off, and I was able to get the first turn, which was great for me. Turn 1 was really straightforward. I marched my first platoon down the left flank. I love this combo. I use it in every tournament now. Steam tank plus the state troops, they just work really well together. Just the infantry and armor working in concert. These guys just bring that ability to take the objectives and that mass and that ability to take the charge. And the steam tank is just such a threat that typically if you put it on something like the flank, the enemy just can't deal with it. I then sent my greatswords down the mid, and the idea with the greatswords was they just wanted to block off this route here. If those hammerers come in here, then it's probably going to be a bit of a nasty fight. I mean, I've got a couple more characters, but hammerers are hammerers at the end of the day. Neither side really wants to charge each other, and so the idea was my greatswords were just going to be a roadblock, and if they manage to hold the hammerers up for a while, that would be great. And if they all die, then that's fine. It's just trying to just lock down this big unit here. And hey, who knows? Maybe they'll push through and get to the anvil and just break this all open. I mean, they're great swords at the end of the day. They are meant to be great. And then over here, my state troops began their screening march to intercept any dwarf warriors that try and come down here. As for shooting, it was pretty straightforward. The Hellblaster volley gun wasn't in range. The two cannons were. They slung some cannonballs into the dwarf warriors and managed to kill a few of them there. And then I actually fired my great cannon into the bolt thrower, and I got a direct hit to land on it because it's on a hill, so it's almost cannon proof. But if you manage to roll that 10 on the bounce, then, or not on the bounce, on the land, and you place attention to the back, you do hit it. And I actually initially rolled something like a 4, and then even with the risk of the misfire, I used my engineer to re-roll it, and then I got the 10, landed on the bolt thrower, but then got the wound, but then unfortunately did 2 damage to it, so it didn't die. And then my steam tank got a misfire on its cannon and did a wound to itself. Going over to Dwarf turn 1, the warriors marched down this side here, and then the Anvil of Doom let them move again. So they were actually pretty speedy without even needing to be in marching column. Then you had the hammerers, which just shuffled forward a little bit here. They didn't march, they just moved because the gunslinger Thane wanted to do his thing. And then the Iron Drakes came up, and the Longbeards just twisted on the spot. They were facing this way, and then they wanted to turn this way to intercept my big flanking maneuver. Shooting from the dwarves, the gunslinger Thane managed to kill 4 of the greatswords out of the middle unit there. And then the bolt thrower missed, and the grudge thrower was able to, it scattered, but it was able to actually squash a state troop. With turn 1 down, it was time to get into turn 2. Quick apologies here. I forgot to take a picture of what happened in my turn in turn 2. So this is a picture at the end of the round after dwarf turn 2. Fortunately, it was a very simple battle round. In my turn, my cannons and Hellblaster unleashed into the dwarf warriors and really reduced them. And then my greatswords just played a bit more of a defensive role this turn, just wanted to see where those hammers were going to go. And on the left flank, I was able to kill the bolt thrower over here, and then my infantry marched onto the objective and secured that. For the dwarves, their turn was even quicker. The hammerers moved forward again, and between the Iron Drakes and the gunslinger Thane, they killed another 4 of the greatswords. The stone thrower, the grudge thrower, completely missed. The Longbeards moved up a little bit over here, and then they moved forward on the right flank with the greatly reduced King's unit, but they didn't quite get into combat. Going into Empire turn 3, and I think about charging the King's unit, but I decide that I want them to charge me. I don't want to be going in there and reducing the capability of my guns, because if I charge here, then my guns basically can't engage the unit. So instead, I fire Boomtown one last time at the King's unit, but it doesn't go very well this time. The Hellblaster volley gun rolls poorly on the number of shots, including with a misfire, which reduced its ballistic skill. And then one of my cannons rolled a misfire into a misfire and then rolled a 1 and blew itself up. And the other cannon got a fairly middling result on the grape shot. So it wasn't a great result, but still we were able to reduce the unit down to the point where basically there's 4 dwarf warriors and a king. So fairly manageable for a brick of 30 veteran state troops. Bear in mind that I am weapon skill 4 here, so it's going to make it a bit better for when I'm engaging that king, who's only going to hit me on 3s rather than 2s, and for when I'm engaging the dwarf warriors, who will hit each other on 4s. I also twisted my greatswords like this because I anticipated the dwarf warriors coming in here, winning on combat anyway, and I didn't want these guys to do a fall back in good order, which would then mean they'd bounce through the greatswords because of where they were positioned before. I wanted this to be a fairly seamless, grinding, push and pull combat. Last thing to mention, I was able to pick up the grudge thrower on the hill with a well-placed great cannon shot, and then I used my steam tank to unleash some grape shot into the longbeards over here. Then we go to dwarf turn 3, and it was kind of interesting because I actually beat the dwarf warriors in combat. They only killed 3 of me, and then between the fact that I was close order and I had a banner and I had a double rank bonus, I was already beating them, and so they did fall back in good order. Even though I outnumbered the king massively, he did roll quite well on his leadership, so he fell back in good order, and I chose not to pursue because I was like, well, you know what, I'll be able to like blast him next turn. Benefit of hindsight, that was probably the wrong choice because this king is super duper tough. He's very, very tanky. And so probably what would have been better for me is if I had actually followed up. Because if I'd followed up, then A, I might have actually been able to beat him in combat, and that ties him up. And B, he's now a skirmisher. So he can actually go after these can stuff if this attack doesn't go if the shooting doesn't go very well. In the middle, my greatswords continued to get the shit shot out of them, and they're now almost below half strength. But for me, I see this as an absolute win because the idea of these greatswords was just to tie up this whole middle for as long as possible whilst I won on the flanks. And so every turn that these dwarves decide to sit here and shoot me is a turn in which that my greatswords are doing their job. It's a very glorified, it's a glorified just distraction. And there is a lot of points here, so it's not the most efficient use of them. Maybe I would have been better off charging in, but I feel like if greatswords charge into hammers, they're going to get 2 ranks of combat against me. They've got like the banner of confusion, so I'm not going to strike first or anything like that. So charging in here is not an option, really. I just have to sit here and take it and hope that I can clean up these flanks quickly to then circle around and try and hit these guys in the flank and rear. Speaking of the flanks, the Longbeards actually went drilled and then charged my steam tank, and I think they actually were able to beat it in combat just through like static combat rares and stuff, because it didn't do very much damage to them because I didn't roll very well on my stomps and stuff like that. And so they actually, but it's unbreakable, so they just forced it back a couple of inches. But the Longbeards, just with hammers and shields, are actually able to do some pretty decent work against that steam tank. They're very tanky. Moving on to Empire turn 4, I march my state troops into the face of the Dwarf King here. The idea is I'm just going to secure this objective, and then I shoot him with my guns, and what I feared came to pass. I only did 3 wounds to the king. He just tanked it like an absolute mega boss because he's on like a 4-up ward save with all those runes of shielding. So he just tanked it. And that's a real problem because now he's just going to go, see you later, shitlords, and just skedaddle around the side because he's basically a skirmisher at this point. In the mid, I march my greatswords right forward here. And the reason I do that is because if these guys charge me and break through, I've got stubborn, so I'll just fall back the first time, and it secures my flank against them charging through, breaking me, and then maybe coming and hitting these guys in the flank. Because if that happens, the right flank, which right now is looking very good for me, could very easily turn. This is how important this greatsword unit's job is. Yeah, they're getting absolutely smashed. Yeah, they're probably all going to die. But the fact that they're just completely stopping these hammers from just coming in and just basically beating them and also beating up a flank is really important. And whilst I think the greatswords are not showing off their combat prowess in this game, they are showing off how important their role is, and actually how good the full plate armor was. If I was facing off, if this was state troops in the middle, they would all be dead by now. Easily, between the Iron Drakes and the Gunslinger and the fact that this thing is like shooting fireballs left, right and center. It's a great testament to how much tankier these guys are, that they basically face down like 3 turns of pretty decent dwarf shooting, and they're still above half strength. If this was 30 state troops, they'd all be dead by now. No doubt in my mind. I was rolling 4-up saves, 5-up saves like a fiend. As for the left flank, my state troops just redressed the ranks a little bit, and the unending slap fight between the 3-up save weapon skill 5 Longbeards and the tank continues. However, I will say that the steam tank is grinding through them, and from an initial unit of 20, they're basically down to about half strength after a couple of rounds of combat with the tank. So they're doing good work, but they are getting ground down. And seeing this, in turn 4, Isaac decides to go for a different strategy. And instead of going for the steam tank again, he actually uses drilled and goes for a charge on the state troops. But unfortunately, he doesn't quite make it. And so this does leave him in a very precarious position, because now he is facing down against my big old brick of state troops. And this steam tank is in a position to actually, maybe not straight away, but it's infantry that's be freed up and go this way, or to come after the Longbeards again, this time from the flank. As for the mid, the Greatswords continue to hold out verily against the overwhelming dwarf firepower, although this time I think I actually survive it pretty well. The Thane just misses with both shots, the Iron Drakes only kill 1, and the Anvil of Doom fails to get its fireball off. So I actually lose 1 guy this time, which is kind of nice. But what isn't nice is L's skirmishing king starts yeeting himself down the flank, and this is going to become a big problem for me. I am going to have to run away with my guns. But we're getting into the end game now. Here is a summary of the battlefield at the end of round 5. So Empire turn 5 and Dwarf turn 5. I march my state troops into the face of the Longbeards, and I turn my steam tank round. I steam the Longbeards, but unfortunately don't do any damage. And I actually managed to fire a cannonball into the side of the Iron Drakes here, but unfortunately don't quite do as much damage as I would have liked, and so only killed 2 of them. I want to pick that little unit up for a few extra points. As for the Longbeards, they just sort of sit here in their turn. They're like, we're not charging in, that's a bit of a trap. We are absolutely just going to sit here and basically try and survive and preserve our points, which is a very smart move from Isaac. And then I run away with my guns, but one of my cannons fails its march test, which means that they don't get far enough away, and the Dwarf King comes over the top, and it's like, hey, gonna get ya. As for the middle, the stalemate continues, although this time the dwarves do manage to pick up quite a few kills from the Greatswords. And then here we have a picture of the game at the end of round 6. So I go into the Longbeards and I actually beat them pretty handily. I think they just stubborn back the first time, but I just follow it with both things. And by the end of round 6, I have wiped out the Longbeards completely. My Greatswords do end up falling, unfortunately. The Hammerers just blasted them, and then turn 6 just went through and mopped up the survivors. And I tried to kill the Dwarf King. I was like, look, I can't run away from him. I've just got to try and kill him. Unfortunately, he just tanked everything on his 4-up invulnerable save, ward save, I should say. And so that didn't really work. And in the last turn, he picked up a cannon over. And so we get to the end of the game, and both sides are actually, we're not been completely smashed. The king is still alive, and the hammerers are still alive for the dwarves and the Anvil of Doom. But for the Empire, we've got both of our core units still alive, and we've got a couple of our cannons still alive, and we've still got the steam tank. In the end, this game actually ended up being a draw. Now, I did beat Isaac by about 150 points. So initially thought I had won, but in the match play guide, you have to beat your opponent by 300 points in order to get the victory. So I ended up with a matched play draw, and I have to say that was perfect. This was a really good game. Very back and forth, both sides having their tactics and having their strategy. And at the end of the day, I think that a draw kind of is the perfect ending for this game, because it was a really fun and friendly game between Isaac and I, and it was just a proper game of Old World. I, didn't quite manage to get the enemy general, but Isaac got my general, but I did manage to sort of secure the flanks, but he punched through the center. Overall, at the end of this battle, both sides are battered and bruised, but their armies aren't completely shattered, and both sides can claim victories in certain parts of the game. So overall, absolutely a draw, both in terms of points, in terms of vibes, and just in terms of good times. So we go into round 2, and once again I am facing the dwarves, and once again I am facing an army of infamy, but this time we go from having no guns in the dwarf army, well, nearly no guns in the dwarf army, to all of the guns. This is Will and his Dwarven Expeditionary Force, and my god, it is a spicy list. So in his army, he had 3 engineers for his characters, then he had 2 squads of 2 scout gyrocopters with clatter guns, and then he had 2 squads of thunderers, 110, 111, and then he had another unit of scout gyrocopters with clatter guns, 2 of them. They had a big squad of 4 regular gyrocopters with the brimstone guns, and then he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cannons. I don't know if he had any runes on them. There's a rune of reloading on one of them, and they all have function over form as a special rule. And then he has a gyro bomber, another gyro bomber, and then a flame cannon. So 7 cannons between cannons and flame cannons, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 gyrocopters. My god. I'm going to say it. As an Old World player, I want to hate this list. But as a City State of Nuln player, I love this list. This list makes me want to take more cannons. And after playing this list, I have drafted up a list of my own, which is 6 great cannons and 4 Hellblaster volley guns in a City State of Nuln army. And let me tell you, that only comes to about 1,000 points. With the 3 engineers, it's about 1,300. So, whoa, baby. Yeah, if dwarves can bring guns, Empire can definitely bring more. But we're getting ahead of ourselves now. This list is one that I think is definitely quite good and quite competitive for the dwarves, because it leans into the whole, look, we don't have magic, but we can bring a lot of firepower. So if we just cast gun, then we're going to be in a very good position. And it's also quite fast as well. The combination of the gyrocopters and the cannons, I think, really makes up for a very, very potent list, because the gyrocopters bring the speed and the durability, and the cannons just bring the wallop and the punch. So it's a spicy list, not gonna lie, and I saw this one and I thought, okay, we're gonna be in for a tough game. Now, the scenario for round 2 was drawn battle lines with 3 objectives across the middle. For deployment, I had a great cannon over on the left flank. I had my Hellblaster volley gun in the middle, and I had a unit of state troops. And I deployed very wide on the state troops because I wanted to try and reduce the amount of bounce through that his cannons could do. Also, I figured I wouldn't need much static combat res when trying to fight things like thunderers and whatnot. I then had my greatswords in the middle. I didn't actually put any characters with them this time. I put my BSB on one flank and I put my general on the other flank. And the idea was just to try and reduce the amount of panic that I might have to take, because the greatswords are pretty good at just resolving that kind of stuff between the fact they've got stubborn and then the fact that they're also going to benefit from the BSB on this side and the general on this side. And then both of these state troop units are now immune to panic because of the hold the line special rule. So I'm not actually worried about him panicking me off. And that was actually something that caught Will off guard. I was like, you know, he shot a bunch of my guys. Like, okay, that's a panic test. I was like, no, it's not. I'm immune to that. No problem whatsoever. So it was actually, I actually had some tools in this list to deal with what Will was throwing down. Finally, on the right-hand side, I had a steam tank, 2 great cannons, and I had another unit of state troops with my BSB in. As for the dwarves, we've got the regular gyrocopters and 2 cannons here, and we've also got a gyro bomber. And then we have got a unit of thunderers, another gyro bomber, a unit of scout gyrocopters, 2 of the cannons and the flame cannon in the middle, and then over towards the other flank, we have got the thunderers and more of the scout gyrocopters, more of the cannons, and then on the far left from my perspective, we've got 1 unit of the scout gyrocopters. Interestingly, despite the fact there's loads of war machines in this list, I actually managed to get the first drop down and also get all of my drops down first, because whilst there's like 7 cannons and flame cannons in this list, there's also 2 units of thunderers, so that's 1 drop. 2 units of thunderers is 3 drops. Then the characters 4 drops, and then all the gyrocopters. It's like 11 drops or something mental. So I actually got the first +1 for getting all my units down, and then I got another +1 from General Löwenhacke, which meant I did get to go first on the roll-off. And my plan was very simple this game. I wanted to basically try and whittle down the amount of cannon fire that I was going to take, and then just close the gap, close the distance as quickly as possible. Just sprint over there, batter the thunderers, get to the cannons, and then just do whatever I can to the gyrocopters. So to that end, I yeet my halberdiers forward here with a big march, get my steam tank forward here, and I also bring my great swords forward as well, and everything just advances that can. Now I do make a mistake here, and I move my Hellblaster volley gun over to this side. I don't really, I did that with the idea of maybe getting an angle in the future, but I just didn't anticipate how quickly these scout gyrocopters could go, and I left a line of sight gap across here, and as a result, those scout gyrocopters were able to get into me next turn, which is a big mistake on my end. If I hadn't done that, that could have made a big difference. I also had a little bit of bad luck, which was I actually fired 2 great cannons against Will's regular cannons over here. My first great cannon, perfect hit, killed one. The second great cannon took itself out of the fight with a misfire followed by a misfire, which was a nightmare, because if I'd picked both of those cannons up there, then that would have actually meant that that flank was in a really good position. And the next turn, what I could do is actually turn these guns around and start going after these cannons over here, because I'm screening my cannons out from his cannons with my infantry. So this cannon failing here and this poor move from the Hellblaster volley gun here, those were very, very unfortunate, as you'll see when we go into the dwarf turn. So dwarf turn 1, and the cannon over here takes out the cannon on this side, and he takes out the cannon which could still fire. You see, the misfire that I'd got on my misfiring cannon had been it couldn't fire for the turn and next turn, which meant that basically this cannon goes boop and picks this one up, and the next turn it goes boop and picks this one up, which is a real pisser. I should have dominated that cannon situation and then been able to turn my guns around, but this misfiring cannon completely screwed this plan up, and it's such a shame because it was a misfire into a misfire, man. It was such a shame. And then the gyrocopters flew over here and battered the Hellblast, which was again was a big mistake on my part. I did manage in my turn to fire my great cannon and kill 1 scout gyrocopter, and then in the dwarf turn it failed its charge against me, which was nice. But you can see the dwarf gun line already opening up, and like half of my state troops on the right have been knocked out. Some of my greatswords are going down as well. But you can see both of these units took the same amount of firepower. But look how much more durable the greatswords are. They lose like 5 blokes. The halberdiers get cut down by half. Greatswords are good just because they're so much tougher than state troops. Now we go over to Empire turn 2, and I am flying up this board. I'm like, I'm not messing around here. So I move my state troops over to here, which starts threatening this cannon. And then I move my greatswords up here. Yes, there's a hell of a lot of firepower, but I reckon they can take it. And then I move my halberdiers down here, and I'm like, right, I'm right in the face of these thunderers. I can start getting into combat, because once I'm in combat, I am relatively safe as well. The big thing that happened, though, is over on this flank here, Will made a big mistake against my steam tank. He brought his gyrocopters in his turn 1 over here, but he just left it so my steam tank had an angle to charge them, because it just charges out on a standard charge angle. And on the steam power, I rolled like a 6, so I had like a 10-inch charge. So I just went, oh, I'll just wheel a bit and just charge into you. You're only like an inch away. And so my steam tank just completely battered all 4 of those gyrocopters, because it goes in there, it smashes one on impact hits, it crushes another one between, like, with the stomps, and then the gyrocopters do nothing to it, and then they just fall back off the board and just die. And I was like, okay, so 4 gyrocopters down, that's pretty big. And now the steam tank, it's just got to basically run down these cannons here. But you can see, oh man, this game was so close. It was so much closer than you would have thought when seeing Will's list, right? And I had him absolutely on the ropes. And I can tell you now, if this cannon here had killed this cannon, and I hadn't made this mistake with the Hellblaster volley gun, this game, I think, would have been very, very different. Because look at where I would have been at the end of my turn 2 if that had been the case. I would have had those gyrocopters dealt with. I would have had these cannons dealt with. I killed the other scout gyrocopter on this flank with that cannon. These gyrocopters come flying over. The scout ones, I probably could have dealt with them with my Hellblaster volley gun. And suddenly it's like this dwarf list is just, it's pinned back and it's getting run down. But with just one bad move here and one messing up cannon here, I put myself on such the back foot. It was a shame. Going to dwarf turn 2, and these turns are very, very rapid fire. Going over to dwarf turn 2, basically my state troops get absolutely bombarded by gyro bombers and by the thunderers. There's very few of them left now, but my tank basically just tanks dwarf cannons, because at the end of the day, they've got to hit me, and then they've got to wound me on a 3, because they're only strength 8, and then I get a 5-up save against dwarf cannon. So I'm just like tanking fireballs on my steam tank every day of the week. Unfortunately, the scout gyrocopters that were here then fly over to the cannon that was off screen over here and kill that, and these gyrocopters start doing stuff to my greatswords, contributing their firepower. This cannon finishes this cannon off over here. So look, you can see by the end of turn 2, I am looking very, very battered. I have lost all of my guns by the end of turn 2. And my infantry blocks are very, very whittled down. Then we get to turn 3, and I charge my greatswords into the thunderers here, and I take a lot of damage, but I actually managed to beat them in combat, forcing them back there. And then I managed to get into combat with the thunderers over here, but I lose combat. The thing is, this was a real low point. This was a black day for the veteran state troops, because they really should have gone in there and battered those thunderers. They really should have done. But, because, I'm hitting them on 3s, I'm wounding them on 4s. They're only hitting me on 4s and wounding me on 4s. But the problem is that the thunderers have just got, they've got heavy armor and shields, and they just pull out the hand weapons. So actually the thunderers ended up just being better in combat than my veteran state troops. And, that was a real damning moment for the veteran state troops. And I have to say that they did okay in the first game. They really didn't do very well in this second game at all. And whilst I can see the potential of them, if you're veteran, even when I outnumber the Thunderers and I've got a character in there and I still can't beat them, it makes me really go, okay, yeah, veteran state troops are nice, but would I take them again? Probably not. Probably not. This was the damage. They do have some good points, and they have gone up in my estimations, because they were at absolute rock bottom. But going up from rock bottom to just very, very, very far down is basically where my estimations of veteran state troops are right now. I think I would have been much better off saving the points and getting something else in my core. Yeah, for sure. For sure. But anyway, so I charge in, my veteran state troops start losing to thunders, which isn't great. And my steam tank comes barreling down here against these cannons and just starts putting them under a load of pressure. My greatswords batter these thunders, and then I have to make a choice with these state troops here. Do I stay on the objective and farm it, or do I push after this cannon? Now, I'm like, this cannon's worth like 100 points. If I can stay on this objective the rest of the game, it'll get me like 180 points. So, or if not more. So I should stay on this objective. Problem is, I didn't take into account the fact that I have to be above 10 unit strength. And so my opponent only has to kill like 21 of these state troops to stop me from being able to score this. And so I should have pushed on and taken this cannon. I should have pushed on. Going into Dwarf turn 3, and things just start going from bad to worse for the Empire. Firstly, I lose all of my state troops on the right flank in combat to the Thunderers. I fled, and I didn't flee very far, and they chased me down. I got chased down by dwarves. This right flank was just... It was bad. It was bad. But for the mid, my greatswords are just chopping through the Thunderers, no problems whatsoever. Greatswords, I'm telling you, greatswords are good. And then over on the left-hand side, I start seeing the folly of my ways of not going after the cannon as I lose half the unit in one go. And I go, oh dear. Right, so yeah, I'm going to lose the neck. I'm going to score 30 more points, and then I'm not going to score, and then yeah. So this was a mistake, but the greatswords are doing great, and the steam tank is putting pressure on the cannons, which is awesome. We head on over to, I think, turn 4 for the Empire, and my steam tank doesn't quite make it into combat with the cannons. I just steam right up to them. And unfortunately, my cannon just messes up, rolling like a 1 to hit, and the steam gun doesn't do anything. The greatswords beat the Thunderers and turn around to see that everyone's dead. And then the state troops here just turn to face the scout gyrocopters, but it's more a case of showing willing than anything else, because frankly, they're just going to jump over it and keep shooting me. And then we get to Dwarf turn 4, and yeah, the greatswords, after such a valiant fight, get taken off the board, and the state troops get taken below scoring. And so really, by the end of Dwarf turn 4, I've got like a general, 4 state troops, and a steam tank left over. And so turn 5 and turn 6 are very, very quick in this game. My remaining state troops and my general get taken down, but it's actually really close. My general tanks a lot of the damage, and it's only on the last turn when the dwarves managed to get him. And if he had survived, well, you'll see. You'll see. And my steam tank, over the course of my turn 5 and turn 6, kills both of the cannons and actually manages to kill the engineer as well. Because I kill one cannon in my turn, overrun into the other cannon, kill that in the dwarf turn, and then in my turn 6, I kill the engineer on this side. And so I actually take up a lot of points there. And so so I lose everything but the steam tank, but I'm not tabled. But if we look at the dwarf army here, you have to understand, these guys are dead. The only thing that's left over in the dwarf army is 2 gyro bombers, 2 scout copters, and 1, 2, 3 war machines. So I absolutely battered them. And when we get to the end of the game, it turns out that I have lost, but I've only lost by like 400 points. Which is only like 100 points more than the draw. If I'd managed to if I only lost by 300 points or less, I actually would have got the draw here. And so when I say, like, if this cannon hadn't messed up here, then it would have made such a difference to the game. I mean it. When I say if I hadn't messed up this Hellblaster volley gun here, it would have made such a difference. I mean it. When I say if I'd pursued this cannon over here and taken it out, it would have made such a difference to the game. So this game was actually really, really close. And even though I felt like Will was in control of it a lot of the time, if just one of 3 things had gone my way, whether, hadn't made that mistake, hadn't had that double misfire on that cannon, and I'd been braver and I'd pushed this cannon down, I'd pushed this cannon with my state troops, I could have got a draw out of this game. And I think this is This game is a great testament to how like skew lists are in Old World. They can be very, very powerful, but they are not the be-all and end-all. And I think it's worth pointing out in the last round, Will got to the top table in the last round, and he faced off against a very normal Bretonnian list. Had some Pegasus Knights in it, had some regular Knights in it, it was an Errantry Crusade, it had some Foot Knights in it. You know, it was a very, very normal Bretonnian list, and Will's skew list actually got beaten by it. So this list is really good, but it's by no means unbeatable. And I think if I went into it again and I had a bit more practice and I refined my list a little more, I think I could take it. I think I could take it if I got to go into it again, for sure. And so that's what I really want to hammer that point home, right? I really want, before we move on to the next game, I really want to hammer that point home. There's going to be a lot of people that see Will's list and go, "Duh, that's not a proper Old World army." It is. And what I love about Old World is that, yes, there are some janky armies. Yes, things can be very skewed. It's a Warhammer game at the end of the day. It's a Games Workshop game at the end of the day. But Will's army here isn't broken in any way, shape, or form. It only got a minor win against me. It didn't win the event overall. And actually, this is just a really cool Dwarf Expeditionary list. And I would have no issues playing against this list again. This list kind of reminds me of, in Warhammer 40k, my Triple Death Strike list. The first time you play against it, it really messes with your head. And it probably gets you the first time you play against it. The second time you play against it, you can handle. You realize the Death Strikes are really more terror weapons than anything else, and if you don't let them voodoo you can absolutely take it. You just need that experience against it. So this list, I think, is absolutely fine, and I know there are plenty of armies that would have no issue playing into it whatsoever. So with 2 games down, it was time to go into game number 3, and I played against Antonio. So Antonio and his Tomb Kings is someone who I played in my last tournament report, and just to be clear, this is a jokey, grumpy face. Before anyone goes, "Oh, is that the normal reaction you get when you turn up, Mordian?" No. Antonio and I, we had a great game last time. We had a great game this time. But it was just funny because last time I had just 2 great cannons. And this time I had like my 2 great cannons. I had 3 great cannons. And my cannons had just been the bane of Antonio's existence in our last game. So that when he saw that I turned up with an extra great cannon, he was jokingly very, very grumpy about it. Also, quick shout out to Maria, Antonio's wife. He said that I had to shout your name out or he was going to beat me up. So, he's a serious man. Look at that face. He's a serious man. So I like my kneecaps where they are. I'm only joking. But on a more serious note, Antonio, I don't think, had anything to worry about in this game because he has really leveled up his Tomb Kings. Firstly, he has been a busy bee and he's been painting them a bit more. And he's got most of his skelly bobs done now, which is fantastic. But he also has, not only has he leveled up his painting, but he's also leveled up his list. And he had a frankly brutal mortuary cult list. So in his army, he has a level 4 high priest with the Earthing Rod, Necromancy, Warding Splint, and Cloak of Dunes. And then he has another high priest who's level 3 with Lore Familiar and Elementalism. And then he has another mortuary priest who's level 1 who is the BSB. He then has a unit of 6 Ushabti with great bows who are core, and then 2 bricks of 30 skeleton warriors, which are actually pretty good in this kind of game because it allows him to, score lots of points on the primary. He then had a little squad of 6 skeleton skirmishers, which is a bit of chaff, a couple of tomb scorpions, another squad of 6 Ushabti with great bows, a casket of souls, and the ever awesome Necrosphinx. Now, the reason that Antonio's list is so brutal is because those Ushabti are really good. Each one is basically armed with a mini bolt thrower. And so he's essentially got 12 bolt throwers in this list. They're multiple damage, and they always hit on 4s because they have arrows of the asp. And they're just very, very, very strong. And then he's also got the 2 bricks of skeletons who are just great for just like tar pitting stuff. But it's the amount of magic in this list. There is 4 casters in this list with the Casket of Souls and then the 3 priests, and because it's mortuary cult, he can like take wounds off a unit, boost up his casting, and then he can just like arise those wounds back in. And honestly, seeing like Antonio like managing all of his cards and stuff, it was very, very impressive. When I play Old World, I try and build my armies genuinely as simple as possible. And that's, that makes the list easier to pilot, but it definitely means I'm missing out on a bit of power. But Antonio, he was like casting spells. Okay, that one, that ability, bam, bam, bam. It was like Yu-Gi-Oh, like a whole deck of like Yu-Gi-Oh cards out here. And it was very obvious from the get-go that he was well practiced with this list. He's been putting the time and he's been getting the reps in. And this list was dominating, and it was brutal. Now, to quickly rattle through my deployment and my tactics, my strategy here, I put my steam tank to anchor my flank here, and then I put my state troops on this objective. And the idea is these state troops could happily sit on this objective and score all the points that I needed. I was then going to take my greatswords and my state troops here and just rush them down this flank, because not only would it mean I'd be able to hold this objective, but it also meant I could deny Antonio getting that objective and actually put some pretty serious pressure on him, and also try and run those Ushabti down. And my thinking was, secure both of these, that'll give me a primary point lead. Antonio doesn't have enough or anything over here to really take this objective, so the pressure's going to be on him to like come at me and try and force me off this objective, or to try and score some points by killing stuff. As for the Tomb King deployment, Antonio basically had Ushabti and skeletons on the right flank, Ushabti and skeletons in the middle, and then mostly an abandoned left flank from my perspective. Just the Necrosphinx that was going to try and do some sort of big flanking maneuver. But that's why I had the steam tank there, just to not be able, I didn't have to worry about that. So with all the units down and with my +2 to going first in the bank, I got the first turn. And so I enacted my plan, and I pushed my greatswords forward and my state troops on the right flank, getting that objective, and I got this objective here. And so part 1 of the plan went very, very well. Part 2 of the plan didn't go as well. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to take that Casket of Souls out, and I had 2 cannons that could actually draw line of sight to it. I had my steam tank cannon and I had my great cannon here. I moved my Hellblaster volley gun forward so that it could start dackering into the Ushabti next turn. Now, I got 2 hits on the Casket of Souls, and I got 2 wounds on the Casket of Souls, and I actually did a total of 7 damage to the Casket of Souls, which should have been enough to kill it. But Antonio, after our last game, I advised him, you need to go and buy some new dice, because the current dice that you've got rolled really, really badly. He took that advice on board, and he had bought some new dice. And he then proceeded to pass 5 out of 7 of the damage that I did to him on his regen saves. That was a really big deal, because if I could get rid of the casket, not only is it points in the bank for me, but it also starts reducing the capabilities of his magic, because I'm pretty certain it hands out like some kind of like +1 to cast and then like ward saves and all this kind of stuff. So the Casket of Souls living was a big, big issue. Last thing to mention is I had fired my cannons into the Ushabti here and had managed to kill 1 of them. We go over to Tomb King turn 1, and it becomes immediately apparent to me that I'm in danger, because all of the wounds that I did in that turn were undone. Every single one of them. The Casket of Souls goes back up to full strength. The Ushabti go back up to full strength. And then the Tomb Kings shoot back at me, and the Ushabti just very easily kill my Hellblaster volley gun. I mean, they've got 6 shots. hitting on 4s. Antonio managed to get 4 hits. And then he needs to wound me on 4s. And as long as he gets 2 wounds, then he kills one of my war machines. Because it's damage 2. And I don't get a save because he gets regen, but I don't get any save on my war machines. So he just kills my Halberds gun, and I'm like, oh, okay. And he's going to do that every turn to my great cannons as well. And so yeah, that was a bit disconcerting. But no matter, we go to Empire turn 2. I've still got my plan. I've still got things I can do. I fire, I kid you not, 3 great cannons and a regular cannon from the steam tank into the Casket of Souls, and it survives. Because it's got a ward save now. And one of my cannons fails to wound. One of them bounces off the ward save. So 2 great cannons get through. I do 6 damage. But again, those regen saves, those new dice, they were just popping. They were just popping. And it passed enough regen to survive. And I was like, right, okay. Like, it should have died turn 1. The fact that it's not died over 2 turns is really, really bad for me. Like, it's really, really phenomenally bad. But it's okay. We've still got the big flanking maneuver. I march really aggressively forward with my greatswords and with my state troops, and I'm like, it's okay. Because I can get into these skeletons, and I can get into the Ushabti. That'll lock that firepower down, and that'll give me a great chance to start actually doing some work. You know, that'll lock this whole side down. Even the state troops eventually died to the Ushabti. It's fine. Like, the greatswords will bash through all of those skeletons. No problems whatsoever. You know, greatswords are much better than skeletons. And then I can start getting to the car. It's fine. It's fine. The guns aren't doing what they need to do, but the infantry corps won't let me down. Unfortunately, Antonio then started playing Yu-Gi-Oh!, aka doing all of the magic in the world. And because he's mortuary cult, he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna like kill a few of my own guys just to like boost up my casting power. So yeah, I'll do a load of damage to my own Ushabti. It's fine. I can always like grow it back next turn. And so what happens is he basically gets all the spells off without any issues. And he manages to use his Wind Blast to push back my state troops here. And then he puts this big vortex down here, which means that it's difficult and dangerous terrain, the vortex. Now, this really, really screws me because I had a really cunning plan. Because my cunning plan in my turn was I was going to hit these skeletons with both. Because I actually had an angle here to get these guys in first. And I could get in, then lock in, then get the greatswords in, smash these skeletons, and then like overrun get the greatswords into the Ushabti afterwards. And that'll just like completely like turn this game around. But because Antonio not only has pushed me back, it makes my charge longer, but now this is 2d6 picking the lowest. I don't have warband or anything like that, and it's -1 to charge through as well. Yeah, this vortex here was masterfully played, but basically signaled the end of the game. Because it's actually, because now it's a vortex, which actually it's like cast on like 11 or something. And my policy of screw mages, fuck magic, basically bit me in the ass because I was like never going to like dispel it. It's a vortex from necromancy, by the way. So I'm never going to be able to dispel this unless I get like a double 6. And so I can't get into combat with these guys. And I can't outshoot the Tomb Kings. So my whole game plan now is, can I sit on these objectives and try and get enough primary? And my thinking was, okay, if I sit on these objectives all game, I'll get like 660 points. Because it's like 60 points a turn. Like times like, except for like turn 1. So it's like 660 points or 690 points, something like that. And then Antonio has to beat me by 400 points after that. So if I can just sit on these objectives and then not give up then not lose by like another 400 points, then I can maybe get a draw out of this game. But truth be told, that is essentially what the entire game became. I sat there for the entire game just getting shot at by the Tomb Kings. I hid my cannons to try and preserve the points there, and just desperately trying not to give up points. And if we sort of just go through the pictures, you can just see, like, the Tomb Kings have got all the magic, all the shooting in the world. The only thing I managed to do is, like, kill the Tomb Scorpion with my steam tank, like a desperate hurrah. But then my steam tank, like, it dies. And so this game, not to, like, rush to the end, but literally from Tomb King turn 2 onwards, it was a game of the Empire sitting on objectives, scoring primary points, desperately trying to not give up any more points, slinging, like, you know, I couldn't even kill the Tomb Scorpion. It like popped up, fell at its charge, and then like I great cannoned it, and it just survived. It just passed enough regens. You know, and my dice were very poor this game as well. Like, it was one of those games where literally, like, everything went against me, and it was also just, honestly, it was just a fundamental mismatch. Mortuary Cult and Tomb Kings and Ushabti Spam are just so powerful because I couldn't outshoot them as Empire, and I couldn't get into combat with them because of the amount of magic that they had. And I'm not saying that this list was overpowered in any way, shape, or form. Like, Antonio didn't win all of his games. I think he won 2 and like got like a draw, like 1-2 and lost 1. But in this matchup, I just did not have a chance. I just did not have a chance because I couldn't get into combat with him. I'm not fast enough to get into combat with him, and I can't outshoot him. And yeah, it was a bad matchup. This was a bad matchup for me, but it was a very, very good display from Antonio. And I really want to hammer this point home. I think he played really, really well. I definitely went into this game a little bit overconfident. I thought, I'll just run down that flank, smash them, no dramas whatsoever. I'll just shoot, I do what my cannons do. And at the end of the day, my cannons didn't perform, and I wasn't able to get into combat. And Antonio just saw what my plan was and went, okay, I'm just going to stop that. I'm just going to stop that. And that is not going to happen. If I were to say one thing to Antonio, which is he did this massive flanking maneuver with his Necrosphinx. And in the end, all it ended up killing was like a cannon. Maybe like 2 cannons. I think all it ended up killing was a cannon. And so I would say if I had one piece of advice for Antonio, this is the second time that we've played where he's done this like absolute like mega flanking maneuver. Last time we did it, he did it with his Tomb King on Dragon, and it didn't really kill anything the whole game. And this time he did it with his Necrosphinx, and it only killed like one thing. I do appreciate the big flanky sweep, but I think maybe he's going a little too wide. That would be the only feedback that I had, but I want to make something abundantly clear. Antonio was the master of this game. He knew his list very well. He knew what his capabilities were. He knew what I was trying to do, and he shut that shit down. So a very, very good display from Antonio. And I want to say, actually, I want to do a bit of a highlight here. I have seen Antonio go from his very first game of Tomb Kings to where he is now, and he has come along so far as a player. He has really just improved his game again and again and again. He's tweaked his list again and again and again, and I think it's a really, really good display of what you can do as a new player if you just learn from your losses. Antonio has taken some serious batterings to get where he is here. You know, he has gone to several tournaments and not won any games. But this, I think, was the culmination of a lot of hard work. In his first game, he smashed it. And he did really, really well. in this game, he smashed it and he did really, really well. And I think that if he continues doing what he's doing now, he is going to become one of the top players at Just Play. And I think he can go really far. So a big shout out to Antonio. And I just want to say I have loved from a distance seeing his journey as an old world player. And it has been awesome to see him go from beginner to, I would say, now master. And so we get to the end of round 3 and the end of the event, and things hadn't gone very well from a win-loss point of view, with me getting a single draw and then a minor loss and then a major loss. But interestingly, I didn't actually come last at the event because there were a couple of players that had actually gone 0-3 and lost all their games. And so my single draw meant that I managed to avoid the wooden spoon. But that wasn't really important. I had just had a lot of fun and there'd been some real lessons learned from the event. The first one is that greatswords are great. I really liked them. Apart from that last game when basically nothing was able to perform, they did reasonably okay in every other game. In the first one, they just managed to hold up the dwarves long enough. And maybe if I hadn't had my general and my BSB in there, if I just sort of relied upon the greatswords just being stubborn and had my characters in the side bricks and then use the 12-inch command range to support the greatswords in the middle, I probably could have got a win out of that game, which would have been cool. And then in the second game, they actually ran across the board and were able to chop up those thunders, which was nice. And in both games, in fact, in all 3 games, it was a real testament to how durable the greatswords were, that I was actually able to get the points that I got. So even in that last game, for example, Antonio was able to kill all the greatswords, but because he was so focused on killing the greatswords, he didn't kill the state troops, which meant that I did actually manage to get, in that last game, 1 tournament point out of it. So the scoring is in match play is done on the 6 tournament points. So a draw is 3 tournament points each. So my first game, I got 3 tournament points. In my second game, it was only a minor loss, so I got 2 tournament points. And then that last game, because my greatswords took so long for Antonio to chew through, it meant that my state troops just sat on both of those objectives, scored me plenty of points, and that meant that I actually was able to get a tournament point out of that game. So it wasn't a whitewash in any way, shape or form, and I didn't end up getting tabled. And so the greatswords, I just found them just having full plate armor was really, really good, and it meant that they could run across the board and actually kill things, and they also could just sit there and just take damage and take a while for my opponent to grind through. Like I said, if I was to play them again, I probably wouldn't have the characters with them. I would run them as a bit more of a distraction Carnifex. And maybe I'd go for like a couple of units of 20 of them. And 2 bricks of 20 greatswords, I think that's a lot of full plate for the enemy to chew through. On the other hand, the veteran state troops were a lot more hit and miss. In the first game, them having the good weapon skill did help. But in the second and third game, I think the fact that they're still only got a 6-up save really just made me go very cold on them. I mean, they're like 8 or 9 points a model because you're paying 7 points base and then you're putting the Halberds on. So they're like 8 points per model, and I really just don't think that they're worth it. I really don't. I think that weapon skill 4 is nice. Veteran never came up. But truth be told, in the one fight where they were weapon skill 4 fighting something that's weapon skill 3, it didn't save them. So, in terms of elite Empire infantry, greatswords get a thumbs up, get 2 thumbs up, but elite veteran state troops, I think, get a thumbs down. I think they've got some potential, but I probably wouldn't take them again. But the number one thing to take away from the whole event is I won Best Painted again. This is the 3rd time that I've managed to win a Best Painted award with my Empire. And so I think it comes down to 2 things. And I've said this before. I think it's the fact that Zealot Yellow is just such a striking color that it brings in the attention. It's very eye-catching. So that combined with the fact that if you look at the, if you kind of look at the way, especially in that second game, for example, if you look at how my army looks, I think that's why I keep winning Best Painted. I think it's the combination of Zealot Yellow is very striking, and I always bring armies that look like armies, is what is allowing me to actually get these Best Painted awards. I don't think I am an award-winning painter. I think Zealot Yellow plus proper bricks of infantry is an award-winning combo. But you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. But with all that said, I think that just about wraps up today's video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you want to see more Greatswords? What Empire army do you want me to take next? I'm thinking of going Dogs of War next, or going for 40 Flagellants. I might go for an Army of Faith next, just because the idea of taking that many Flagellants is kind of mental, and like having some like war altars as well. Yeah. Going for the recreating that army of Volkmar the Grim from the Storm of Chaos. Yeah, that appeals to me. But let me know what you guys want to see. Like I said, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys want to see. And if you enjoyed today's video, then don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. And if you want to see more after action reports and more old world content, then subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Redfield, 32, Jurgens, Miasma, Try Again, Bragg, RJ, Scorpion, Bonbon Vert, Lord Pryor, Nicholas Walsh, John Stubbs, Guardian, Varney, Sword, Fish Trombone, Picklock, The Forged. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.